Hello, and welcome back to Critical Reaction with your host, Bryan. Uh, I don't know if you saw, I'm going to preface this video. I put up a post, a text post. If you have text posts allowed in your subscription box and you're subscribed, you'll see it. It has a link to the Rush video that I did last week. I think it was last Tuesday. It's a link to a Google Drive video. You should be able to watch it in full. The Google Drive player is the same as YouTube, so if your internet isn't great, you can watch a lower resolution. Otherwise, the 1080p version's up there as well. It's one of the nicer things about the Google Drive video player. I'm still working on getting the other 3 blocked videos up on services. I don't have a lot of Google Drive space, so I'm having to either find other cloud drives to put it on that have good video players, or I'm having to re-encode them with stronger compression to make the file sizes smaller so I can fit them all on standard 15 gigs on a Google Drive. So that's where we're at though, but the Rush one is up. The other ones are coming soon. I don't know when soon is. I don't really have a lot of time to devote to that little side project of getting those blocked videos up, but I am working on it. I do want to get them up. I'm very excited to hear what you guys have to say about the Tesseract video. Speaking of things to say, I guess if you want to comment on the Rush video, go ahead and comment on that text post. If you're not subscribed, you can find it in the community tab of my YouTube channel. I believe, I'm not really sure how text posts work. I think it's in the community tab though. Go to the one where I linked the Rush, and y'all can put the comments in there about the Rush video. And if you want to recommend more Rush songs or something like that. With all that said though, let's get on to today's reaction. We are reacting to Gojira. The song is called Art of Dying, and it was recommended to me by Saku. And yeah, let's get into this. I've never heard of this Gojira band before, so I'm a little excited. The cover art's giving me some pause, but let's get into this. Alright, we got what sounds like throat singing, or maybe just a really low instrument being held, and very interesting percussion, very rhythmic percussion. It could be the rim of the snare, or it could be its own instrument. The hard beats in the background, I mean, that could be pretty much anything. Alright, so what I thought was the rim hit is getting a little wider now. Alright, where are they going with this? Dang, they just came in heavy. Despite the really syncopated snare hits, this does feel like it's in 4/4, which just shows, the level of craftsmanship that they have in composing and dealing with time. Because this does not feel like 4/4. You can hear the 4/4 on the cymbals, but nothing else about this feels like it. Dang, this song is just all over the place. Losing contact with the living, almighty TV runs He has a very rough vocal style. I think it's more of an acquired taste. I don't think many people are going to really get into it on the first time. I might just be projecting a little bit. I'm not really getting into it on the first time, and I'm not even really new to harsh vocals. Even just like that, I'm talking about the time, I don't think the tempo changed at all between those two sections, but the drum pattern shifted wildly, and it feels like we slowed down a lot. Ooh. This part is phenomenal. I really love the use of harmony, which wasn't really used or employed much in the first half of the song or whatever. This drummer's just real consistent, almost robotic. I don't know. Even just this part, the bass drum alone, the bass kicks. And I like how they chose to put clean backing vocals under the guy screaming. I think it really widens the sound. It gives it a little bit of depth that he doesn't have any other sections of the song. What are they doing? Oh my god. I just got taken back to the late 90s. Oh, that's a pleasant surprise. That's why this sounds weird. It's still 4/4, but they're playing 6-bar phrases. I knew something felt like it was ending early, but I was counting 4-4, and I'm like, that's not it. But yeah, we're playing 6-bar phrases here. Well, I guess technically it'd be 3-bar. That one melodic riff is only 3 bars long. Alright. I think that's it. Pretty good way to end a song. Uh, Actually not. It looks like we have another minute and a half to go. What are they gonna do with this 90 seconds here? Alright, I'm going to assume that was a bit of an intro into the next track. Alright, Gojira. The Art of Dying. Uh, it's a heavy song. That cannot be overstated. Well, it can't be overstated, understated. You just have to state it. That is a heavy song. I don't know if that's kind of their MO, but geez, it's probably one of the heaviest songs we've done on this channel so far. Definitely at least in the top three. Um, it's almost unrelenting in its wall of sound, and much like yesterday's Devin Townsend project, it kind of sticks to a single idea and just stays there. That was a 10-minute song, maybe more like 8.5 if we take out the outro. And there were 5 riffs, maybe tops in there. Um, and I think 5 might even be pushing it. 3 or 4 is probably what I would assume without having explicitly counted throughout. Um, they stick to a really heavy rhythm and a heavy riff, and they just go with it. And you got the guy just screaming. I mean, this guy is what sounds like to me Fry yelling. He's nearing the top of his vocal register, his vocal range, and he's applying Fry on top of that and distorting a very high note. And it sounds like he's pushing a ton of air. I mean, he's got volume here. Um, and a little bit of that, it sounds to me, some of the crackling, the distortion. There's a little bit of that done on post, but I think a lot of that is him. Um, and if I didn't know better, I would say that he's on track to ruining his voice. I mean, it does not sound like a sustainable vocal style to me. Uh, like I said yesterday, I'm not a vocal coach. I know a little bit about vocals, just in my studies of learning about all aspects of music, um, it does not sound sustainable to me. But if the guy's been doing it for a long time and it's not causing him any distress, I guess go for it. It's definitely unique. And it adds to the wall of sound. Like I said, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of air. There's a lot of personal distortion that he's adding. There's a lot of volume. He is adding to the wall of sound that the drums and guitar are doing in a way that I don't think many vocalists could. Um, and that's wall of sound is probably the best way to go with defining the band. They're heavy, they're loud, they're in your face, and they don't really give you many opportunities to kind of catch your breath. There was a couple of pauses in there where we dipped down a little bit. The intro was like that. There was a small break before the middle of the song, the bridge. Um, Before we entered that really melodic line on the guitar. There were a couple places, but they didn't last very long. Once the song started, it was going until the end. And I mean, it's not for me personally, for an everyday kind of song. If I'm in the mood for this, for whatever reason, I need something that sounds angry, something to get me pumped up, something that's going to keep me going and not ever, let me back down or calm down for a second. Some people might call this workout music. Um, yeah, there's not going to be much that'll beat this. Uh, but I don't know if I would just, get in my car and go to the store and throw this in. Um, it would not be an everyday thing for me. But I do appreciate a lot of the composition that's going on. Even if there's not much going on with musical ideas, like I said, there's only like three or four riffs throughout the whole thing. The band does a lot of cool stuff with time. And they do it within the confines of 4/4, which is, standard time signature. I only counted a couple of the riffs, but nothing sounded out of place. Um, so I would wager, I'd make a pretty strong wager. The whole song's done in 4/4. They just played around with the way that the time exists inside of the 4/4, which is really cool stuff. Um, the intro riff, not the beginning minute, but when the drums and guitar came in, the drums did these really odd syncopated snare hits, and it really threw off the time of the song. It's if you're not listening to the cymbals, which are holding the cymbals are basically your beats, which is a little odd. Usually, you expect that to be on the bass or the snare, something loud and at the front of the drum kit sound. Um, but you really got to listen in on the cymbals because that's where he's playing the downbeats. But if you're not listening to that and you're kind of focusing on the snare and the bass, like most people tend to do, you could easily get lost in that opening section. Um, all sorts of offbeat hits and coming in just slightly late, slightly early. You don't ever really know where the downbeat is if you're not listening to the cymbals. And the bassist kind of continues that idea throughout the sound. I mean, throughout the song. You typically listen to the drums to get a sense of the time, and the drummer refuses to sit in the time. He's playing every which way except on the beat. So that's real cool. He makes 4/4 sound weird, and that's not easy to do. 4/4 is ingrained in our brains. 90% of the music we listen to in pop culture, in the mainstream, is in 4/4. It's really easy for your brain to kind of get locked into that as normal, and anything outside of that's going to sound weird. And he made the normal sound weird, and that's kind of weird, but I dig it. But the drummer is also just a beast in raw performance. Um, what I think would have been the bridge section was, a flurry of double bass kicks, followed by just it was like 4 or 8 bars of double bass kicks, and then he went crazy on the top part with his arms, and then he went back to the bass kicks, and then back to the arms. The dude's just a beast. Um, yeah, this is Like I said, this is a good song if you're in the mood for it. If you need something heavy, Gojira's got your back. Like I said, I don't know if it would be an everyday song for me, but I do appreciate a lot of the stuff that they did with this song in particular, and I am interested in hearing more stuff from them. Um, oh, one thing I do want to hit on before I leave is the ending, the last minute and a half, what I think is an intro to the next track. It's interesting that for a majority of the song, it's wall of sound. There's not much in the form of melody. It's mostly, just a feeling, a sound, a heaviness, lots of chords, but not many riffs. The singer, he's screaming. There's always that underlying, pedalness, underlying bassiness to it. Even when he's singing individual notes, they all have that underlying, you know, cacophony of distortion. Um, there's not a lot of room in this song for melody or harmony, but they did put it in two places, and one was the section that I really enjoyed with the backing vocals, and I want to say I think the guitars were playing a riff, or maybe it was like a string or a violin or something. I don't really remember, but there was a lot of harmony going on. There was actual riffs and melodic ideas, and I appreciate that they can switch between the two. They're obviously a very heavy band. That's what 90% of the song was, but they did showcase that when they need to, they can write beautiful melodies. They did this in the last minute and a half too. A lot of that was digitally edited to give it those harsh breaks between notes, but the melody was still, it was beautiful. It was a very nice melody, and it's cool that they can kind of switch between the two modes, where it's just hard, brutal wall of sound, and then they can also say, oh, we're also got this nicer side, and we can make that brutal if you want, but we can write melodies. We're pretty good at them, and they sound great. I do wish there was a little bit more melody in the song. I'm not typically a fan of just heaviness. I need a little bit of melodic ideas going on. Um, but I do appreciate that they can do it. It's in their repertoire when they need it. But they don't, it's not their style, and they're not trying to integrate it and be something they're not. So I gotta give them props for that too. Um, and the instrumentation at the beginning is stuff you don't typically hear in metal, so that's kind of cool. A lot of rock and metal, when they're doing instruments outside of the band, it's typically orchestral. You're gonna hear, well, actually, it's typically strings. You're gonna hear violins, violas, contrabasses. Um, Sometimes you might hear tubas and trumpets if they're going for a bit of an epic fanfare. Symphony of Metallica, or Metallica, when they made the Symphony of Metallica album, um, used a ton of brass, and it gave it a very distinct sound. But for the most part, you're going to get strings, and the instruments at the beginning were, to my ears, non-Western, and that's real cool. You don't get to hear some of that. You don't get to hear those instruments in rock and metal very often. People tend to just automatically go towards violins and stuff. It's kind of, it's a part of rock and metal now. Anytime that you want something that's outside of the band, there's a large history of musicians who have chosen those instruments. So it fits. We have an ear for that. It sounds natural to us to combine those. Um, so yeah, it's cool to hear other instruments and music as well. So that's my thoughts on Gojira, The Art of Dying. I keep wanting to say The Way of the Flesh, The Way of All Flesh, because that's what's in the thumbnail, the album art. But the song is The Art of Dying. I assume it's off of the Way of All Flesh album. Let me know what you guys thought. Is this too heavy for you? Is this the only thing you can listen to? Is anything else just too tame for you? Uh, while you're down there, give me some more recommendations for Gojira. I'm interested in some other things that they've done. Um, Specifically, I'd like to hear if they've done anything more melodic, but I am interested in hearing more of their intricate time stuff too. So, if they have a song with both of them, that's fantastic. Um, if the melody just isn't their standard thing, it's more of an offset, something they do in one or two songs. It's not really what they do typically, though. not indicative of their style. That's cool too. Let me know that it's kind of a one-off song, but here's something that's really melodic for you. Um, that's cool. The more information I can get about the band, the better. So, yep. Tomorrow is Friday, last day of the week. So, yeah, tomorrow will be the last video of the week as well. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you all stick around to see tomorrow's. I'll be back at 11 a.m. as usual. And until then, you all have a fantastic day.